There's a quiet truth behind everything you've ever lived. A truth so subtle that most people spend their entire lives searching for power outside, never realizing that they've been building the world from within. Tonight, I want you to slow down for a moment. Feel your own breathing, feel the space behind your thoughts. Because what you're about to remember is not new. It's something your soul has always known. That your assumption, not your desire, is what creates reality. You see, most of us were taught to ask, to pray, to visualize, to want with all our hearts. But very few were ever told that wanting without assuming is the same as standing before a locked door, hoping it opens by wish alone. Desire points the way, but assumption builds the bridge. The world doesn't respond to your wishes. It mirrors your certainty of being. Neville Goddard called this the law of assumption, that every event in your life is a crystallized reflection of who you've unconsciously accepted yourself to be. Life doesn't respond to what you want. It echoes what you know yourself to be. Perhaps you felt it before. That invisible tension between faith and doubt. You visualize something beautiful, a new home, a healed relationship, a better version of yourself. And for a few days, it feels possible. Then suddenly the feeling fades, replaced by fear, disappointment, or silence. And you wonder, why doesn't it work for me? The truth is it does. It's always working. But it's not responding to your conscious desire. It's obeying your deeper assumption. You may believe in abundance, but if deep down you still assume scarcity, the world can only answer that vibration. Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks of this from a scientific lens. Every thought carries an electrical charge, every emotion a magnetic one. Together, they form an electromagnetic signature that the universe must respond to. When thought and emotion move in coherence, when your inner assumption becomes an embodied certainty, you broadcast a frequency of completion. The universe reads that signal as instruction, not request. This is why Neville said, "Feeling is the secret." Because feeling is the language that creation understands. So tonight, as you listen, let this teaching sink past your mind and into your nervous system. This is not about effort. It's not about fixing or forcing. It's about remembering that the assumption you hold, quietly, repeatedly, unconsciously, is the gravitational field of your life. Everything revolves around it. Every conversation, every opportunity, every coincidence you call fate. Maybe you've been living in the paradox of believing consciously, but assuming unconsciously. You've declared, "I am abundant," while still feeling the old identity whisper, "I'm behind. I'm not ready. I still need proof." That inner friction is the very reason things seem to stall. Your mind speaks one truth, your body remembers another. But here's the sacred invitation: to train your imagination and your nervous system to move as one. To make your assumption not an intellectual statement, but a felt frequency that becomes second nature. Think of assumption as mental gravity. It doesn't chase, it doesn't demand, it pulls. It draws everything into orbit with quiet authority. When you live from an assumption, you stop waiting for proof because you already embody the outcome. You stop asking when because you already live in now. Tonight, we begin a journey, not to manifest more, but to awaken the one within you who has always been manifesting. The silent architect behind every chapter of your life. This isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering what power has always been yours. So breathe, soften your shoulders, and allow yourself to feel the simple truth arising within you. What you assume, you become. What you assume, the world must reflect. And as this understanding deepens, the separation between you and your creation dissolves. You begin to realize that the outer world is not against you, nor apart from you. It's you, expressed in form. Every assumption you hold is a seed, and reality is the soil that can't help but make it bloom. So as we enter this exploration of the assumption law, let these words touch you not as concepts, but as activations. This is not theory, it's remembrance. This is the hidden engine behind your reality, the architecture of existence itself. And the moment you feel it, not think it, not hope for it, but feel it, the world rearranges itself to match the new gravity of your being. Pause here. Breathe. The shift has already begun. Most people spend their lives trying to make reality listen. They push, plan, visualize harder, and still, life feels like resistance. The hidden truth is that effort belongs to the surface of consciousness. It rearranges circumstances without ever touching the root. Beneath all the striving lies a single silent driver, what you assume to be true about yourself. Everything else is secondary. You can act as much as you want, but until your assumption changes, the outcome will stay loyal to your inner identity. Neville Goddard called it the law behind all laws. He said, "Man moves in a world that is nothing more than his assumption objectified." What you see as life is not a response to your actions. It is the echo of what you have dared or refused to assume. If you hold the assumption that you are unlucky, every event, every conversation, every minor disappointment bends itself to fulfill that inner decree. The universe is not testing you. It is obeying you. You are both the lawmaker and the witness of that law. Science calls this the function of the reticular activating system, a small network in the brainstem that filters the flood of information around you. Out of billions of sensory inputs, it only allows in what matches your dominant belief. It doesn't show you reality. It shows you your assumption of reality. That's why two people can live the same day and experience two completely different worlds. The one who assumes ease finds opportunities. The one who assumes struggle finds obstacles. Each lives within the boundary of their inner script. Take a moment to reflect. What assumption has been ruling your week? Maybe it's, "I'm always behind." Maybe it's, "Nothing ever works easily for me." You may not speak it aloud, but you live it in your tone, your posture, your micro-decisions, and the world listens to that vibration. Every small event becomes a mirror that whispers, "Yes, you were right." This is not punishment, it is precision. Life will always confirm the frequency you've accepted as yourself. Imagine your assumption as software code, quietly running beneath the screen of your daily experience. You can change the apps, the images, the appearances, but if the underlying code remains the same, the system produces the same result. The universe doesn't have free will in your reality, it has programming, and the programmer is you. You have never been trapped by circumstances. You have been looping within an unconscious script. So the shift is subtle but absolute, from "I must do more" to "I must become aware of what I already assume." Because when assumption changes, effort loses its necessity. Reality stops being a negotiation and becomes an unfolding. The invisible architecture of your life begins to rearrange itself quietly, without resistance, without force. This is the forgotten law. Effort rearranges the visible, but assumption commands the invisible. And once you remember this, your work is no longer to fight the world, but to author it from within. Each assumption you hold is a seed, already coded with the destiny of the tree it will become. You don't need to make it grow. You only need to choose the seed with awareness. Every assumption you live by has an origin story. It wasn't born from logic or conscious choice. It was imprinted through emotion. Long before you could name what you felt, you were already absorbing the silent lessons of your environment. How love must be earned, how safety feels uncertain, how abundance seems to belong to others. These became emotional memories, and from them your assumptions took shape. You didn't decide them, you inherited them. Yet today they quietly decide what you allow yourself to experience. The human mind may forget events, but the body remembers. Your nervous system stores emotion like a signature, and that signature determines the tone of your reality. When you were praised, you learned what kind of self felt worthy of love. When you were dismissed or criticized, you learned what kind of self should stay small to survive. Each moment of approval or rejection etched a line into the blueprint of your being. These emotional memories fused into assumptions, not about what the world is, but about who you are in relation to it. Attachment theory touches on this truth. A child who felt unseen assumes that love requires performance. A child who felt unsafe assumes that life is something to manage rather than trust. These emotional codes grow into adult identities. You might speak affirmations of confidence, yet feel the subtle tremor of "I'm not enough" beneath them. That vibration is the echo of memory. You are not failing to manifest. You are reliving what the body still assumes is true. Neville Goddard's method of revision is one of the most compassionate acts of self-liberation. He taught that the past is not fixed. It's elastic, responsive to imagination. When you revisit a painful scene, not as the wounded self, but as the awakened self who knows their worth, you rewrite the emotional memory that fuels the assumption. The event remains, but its vibration transforms. The moment you change how you feel about what happened, you dissolve the energy that has been unconsciously recreating it. Neuroscience calls this process memory reconsolidation. When a memory is recalled, it briefly becomes malleable again. In that moment, if a new emotional experience is introduced, the brain overwrites the old emotional coding. The past doesn't change, but the emotional chemistry through which you remember it does. And since your assumptions are emotional memories in disguise, every act of revision is a rewriting of destiny at the level of the nervous system. Emotion is the ink. Imagination is the pen. Together, they write the story your reality must read. The words of that story are not in your speech, but in your vibration. You speak them through the way you rise from bed, through the quality of your breath, through the feeling you allow to settle in your chest when you think about your life. Every feeling is a sentence in the novel of your being. So if you wish to change your reality, you do not start with external strategy. You begin by rewriting the emotional tone through which you perceive the world. Each time you feel worthy, loved, and complete within, you are instructing creation to mirror that state. You are no longer repeating the trauma of the past. You are sanctifying it into wisdom. The emotional memory that once built a prison now becomes the foundation for freedom. In this remembrance, you begin to see that assumption is not a belief you declare. It's a feeling your body carries. To shift your assumptions, you must treat emotion as sacred technology. Every feeling you allow becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of reality. Paint with tenderness, and the world will respond in color. If this truth is awakening something in you, stay close. Subscribe now, and keep remembering that what you assume today becomes the life you live tomorrow. There is a delicate exhaustion that comes from trying to believe. You know it well. The endless cycle of affirmations, visualizations, and whispered hopes that feel powerful for a while and then fade back into silence. You tell yourself to stay positive, to keep believing, to never give up. And yet beneath the surface something feels forced. The very effort to believe harder quietly confirms the opposite assumption, that what you desire is not yet yours. It's the hidden paradox that keeps so many seekers circling the same mountain. The more you try to believe, the more you affirm that you do not. Neville Goddard revealed the escape from this invisible loop with a single phrase: "You do not persuade by effort, but by naturalness." The truth is simple but revolutionary. Manifestation doesn't unfold through struggle, it unfolds through relaxation into being. When belief is forced, it becomes resistance in disguise. But when assumption becomes natural, it transforms into identity. And reality, being the loyal mirror it is, cannot help but reflect the identity you inhabit with ease. Psychology agrees with this mystical wisdom. Belief that depends on evidence is reactive. It waits for proof to feel secure. But assumption precedes evidence. It acts as the cause, not the effect. When you assume, you no longer measure the distance between where you are and what you desire. You collapse it entirely. You inhabit the end as if it were already present. This is why Neville spoke of living in the end, because the end is not a point in time, it's a state of being. There's a practice that transforms this from concept into experience, repetition until naturalness. When you imagine your desired scene not with desperate excitement, but with quiet familiarity, it begins to settle into your nervous system as truth. At first, it may feel artificial, but as you return to it, again and again until boredom replaces tension, it becomes normal. And once it feels normal, it's done. Boredom is not failure. It's the sign of embodiment. You've crossed the line from wanting to knowing. Think of how you relate to the sunrise. You don't wake up hoping the sun will appear. You don't pray for it. You don't visualize it every morning. You simply assume it. That certainty, effortless and unexamined, is the same kind of belief that manifests instantly. The universe doesn't respond to the volume of your desire. It responds to the stability of your assumption. When you hold something as naturally true, the outer world must organize itself to confirm it. The irony is that you never need to force faith. Faith isn't built by repetition of words. It's born from the feeling of inevitability. It's the deep exhale that says, "This is already so." And in that relaxation, your energy becomes coherent. You stop sending mixed signals to creation. The body, mind, and heart begin to harmonize in a single frequency, the frequency of completion. So the true question isn't, do I believe enough? The real inquiry is, does my belief still carry the vibration of effort? If it does, it's not belief, it's striving. But when belief becomes quiet, when it no longer needs to prove itself, that's when assumption takes the throne. And assumption, unlike belief, never asks for proof. It simply is. In that stillness, your imagination ceases to be fantasy and becomes remembrance. You stop creating from longing and begin creating from identity. The trap of trying to believe dissolves the moment you realize that belief was never the goal. The goal has always been to remember who you already are, the one for whom the wish is already fulfilled. Every desire you hold carries an unspoken identity conflict within it. You want to experience abundance, love, freedom, or recognition, but a quiet part of you still identifies as the one who is seeking, not the one who already is. This is the invisible tension that keeps so many spiritual seekers walking in circles. They desire transformation while unconsciously remaining loyal to the identity of the one becoming. You may not notice it, but every time you say, I'm trying to manifest, I'm learning to trust, or I'm becoming abundant, you are reaffirming that you are not yet there. The identity of effort replaces the identity of being. You cannot experience abundance while assuming yourself to be someone striving for it. The self-concept and the result exist in different frequencies. One says, it's coming, and the other says, it is done. And these two states can never occupy the same energetic space. The truth, both spiritual and psychological, is that life never exceeds your self-concept. The Galatea effect demonstrates this in behavioral science. The expectations you hold about yourself quietly determine your level of performance, regardless of external conditions. You rise or fall according to the identity you've accepted as yours. The outer world doesn't decide your potential, your inner assumption does. Neville Goddard captured this with divine simplicity when he said, you cannot persist in imagining yourself other than what you are and not become it. Your world is not punishing you, it's reminding you. It reflects your chosen role so perfectly that, at times, it feels cruel. But the mirror only shows what you silently declare about yourself. If you call yourself the one trying, life will play its part, giving you endless reasons to keep trying. The play never ends because the actor never changes costume. There is a subtle but powerful shift that happens when you replace the phrase I'm trying to with I am. At first, the words may feel heavy or even dishonest, but if you stay with the feeling, if you let the new identity sink deeper than the mind's resistance, something extraordinary happens. The body begins to adjust. Your breathing steadies, your shoulders loosen, your nervous system relaxes. This is not imagination as fantasy, it is imagination as biological command. The cells start to align with the self-image you consistently inhabit. Imagine your life as a chessboard. If you keep thinking like a pawn, every move you make will be limited by fear of loss and hope for survival. But if you step into the consciousness of the king, your movement changes, not because the board changes, but because your vantage point does. The same squares, the same pieces, the same world, yet entirely different power. Identity dictates movement. You cannot think like a pawn and play as a king. The invisible conflict ends when you stop negotiating with your old self. There is no transition phase in the universe, there is only assumption. The moment you assume a new identity, the old one begins to fade, not because it's defeated, but because it's no longer being fed by your attention. Energy flows where awareness rests. As you withdraw your emotional investment from the identity of lack, it starves. As you pour your feeling into the identity of fulfillment, it thrives. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. To say, I am, is not to claim superiority. It is to claim coherence. You are not pretending to be something you are not. You are remembering something you've always been. You've simply forgotten under the noise of striving. When you return to the stillness of assumption, the truth becomes self-evident. Your world moves according to who you are being, not according to what you are wanting. The invisible identity conflict dissolves the moment you decide that the one who was searching no longer needs to lead. The seeker becomes the creator, and effort transforms into embodiment. The story you've been telling about yourself finds a new narrator, the one who no longer asks when it will happen, because it already has. You can think of reality as a mirror made of vibration. Every thought you send out, every emotion you hold, ripples through that mirror and returns as form. Yet many people try to manifest through thought alone, by affirming, visualizing, and declaring, while their emotional body remains anchored in the feeling of unworthiness or doubt. This creates an inner split, a vibrational incoherence where the mind says, "I am," but the heart whispers, "I am not." And because the universe responds to the total frequency of your being, not just the words of your mind, manifestation seems inconsistent or delayed. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this energetic alignment heart-brain coherence. The brain is the electrical transmitter. The heart is the magnetic receiver. When thought and emotion harmonize, their combined electromagnetic signature sends a clear, unified message to the field of potential. But when the two are in conflict, when you think abundance but feel fear, the signal is distorted, and creation cannot interpret your intention with precision. The universe never denies. It simply mirrors. Neville Goddard understood this long before modern science confirmed it. He said, "Feeling is the secret. The assumption you wish to embody must feel real to the subconscious, because the subconscious does not understand words. It understands vibration. When you declare, 'I am abundant,' while secretly feeling lack, your subconscious reads the feeling, not the phrase. It responds to the energy of absence, not the poetry of your affirmations. True manifestation begins not when you repeat the right words, but when you teach your body how fulfillment feels. To cultivate this emotional coherence, the breath becomes a sacred bridge. When you breathe deeply through the heart center, imagining gratitude as if what you desire were already complete, the nervous system receives new information, safety, and safety is the ground where new assumptions can take root. The body, once trained to associate abundance with peace rather than pressure, begins to broadcast that signal effortlessly. It stops defending the old story and starts expressing the new one. Think of thought as the architect and feeling as the builder. The mind can design the most exquisite blueprint of your ideal life, but without emotional alignment, nothing is constructed. The blueprint remains paper in the wind. Feeling animates structure. It brings the abstract into the tangible. This is why some people visualize endlessly and see no change. They've built beautiful plans without a builder to raise them into form. When thought and feeling merge, your energy field stabilizes. You no longer oscillate between faith and fear, abundance and lack, hope and doubt. You become coherent, a single, steady frequency that the universe can clearly reflect. And in that coherence, your manifestation timeline collapses. What once took months of struggle begins to unfold naturally, because there is no longer a vibrational argument within you. The secret is not to force emotion, but to allow it. Gratitude, love, fulfillment, these are not feelings to chase, they are frequencies to remember. They already live within you, buried beneath the noise of striving. When you rest in the assumption that it is already done, your body begins to mirror that truth. You breathe differently, you think differently, you walk differently. You become the evidence your reality is waiting for. So emotional coherence is not just the missing link, it is the bridge between worlds. Between thought and form, intention and embodiment, imagination and incarnation. When your mind and heart speak the same language, creation listens. And when they feel the same truth, creation obeys. When your new assumption begins to take root, life often mirrors the opposite. Things seem to fall apart, but they're only rearranging. Neville Goddard called this the fading echo of an old state, the shadow that appears before dawn. What you perceive as contradiction is merely the residue of yesterday's belief dissolving. Reality always confirms your inner state. Behavioral psychology calls it confirmation bias. The mind filters everything to validate its dominant assumption. Change your self-concept, and perception reorganizes to match. At first, you may still encounter evidence of the old identity, just as a ship's wake continues in one direction even after the wheel has turned. The direction has already changed, the surface just hasn't caught up yet. This is the secret rhythm of manifestation. Nothing is truly resisting you. The outer world is slower than your decision, but it must follow. When you stop interpreting temporary appearances as failure, you reclaim authority over creation. Every delay becomes proof that the law is working, adjusting itself to your new frequency. Hold still in that certainty. The moment you stop reacting to echoes, the new reality emerges, quietly, inevitably. faithfully reflecting the assumption you now embody. Imagination is not fantasy. It is creation in its first form. Modern neuroscience confirms what Neville Goddard taught decades ago. The brain activates the same neural circuits whether you imagine an act or physically perform it. The subconscious cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is experienced in the outer world. This means your imagination is not pretending, it is programming. When you imagine the end scene of your desire, not as a spectator, but as the one living it, you instruct your brain and nervous system to adopt that reality as memory. The body begins to feel it as true, releasing the chemistry of fulfillment before anything changes externally. In that moment, your energy field shifts and life starts reorganizing to align with the signal you're sending. Neville's phrase, "imagining creates reality," is not poetry. It's neurology. Every imagined event installs a pattern, and repeated patterns become identity. Think of imagination as the factory and reality as its shipping department. What you feel inwardly is what the world eventually delivers. When imagination becomes natural and embodied, creation is no longer effort, it's remembrance. You realize that to imagine with feeling is to live the future now, and reality has no choice but to catch up. Doubt often feels like the enemy, yet it is only the body protecting what is familiar. The nervous system resists change not because it fears growth, but because it equates the unknown with danger. When you assume a new identity, wealthy, confident, free, your old self feels threatened. It clings to doubt as proof of safety. But doubt is merely a signal that your energy is expanding beyond the limits of your past. Neville Goddard spoke of persistence, the quiet, unwavering repetition of the new assumption until the old vibration loses power. This persistence is not struggle, it's gentle reconditioning. Each time you return to the state of fulfillment, even briefly, you teach your body that this new frequency is safe to inhabit. In time, resistance softens, and what once felt unnatural becomes effortless. Think of it like bringing light into a dark room. You don't fight the darkness. You introduce illumination again and again until shadow is impossible. The same principle governs transformation. You need not destroy the old self, only outshine it with a stronger identity. When you stop fearing doubt and meet it with quiet certainty, the loop breaks, resistance dissolves, and the new self begins to lead. Every encounter is a conversation with yourself, spoken through another's behavior. The people in your life are not separate. They are mirrors, reflecting the tone of your inner assumption. When you believe you are unseen, others overlook you. When you assume you are worthy, the same people begin to respond with recognition and warmth. The shift doesn't occur in them, it begins in you. This phenomenon is what psychology calls the Pygmalion effect. Expectations silently shape outcomes. Neville Goddard went further. Everyone is you pushed out. The world you walk through is your consciousness externalized. The friend who doubts you, the partner who admires you, the stranger who helps you, all are reflections of the self-concept you currently inhabit. When someone triggers you, they reveal the assumption you still hold about yourself. Their words uncover the belief that has remained unhealed. Once you recognize this, relationships cease to be sources of conflict and become instruments of revelation. You stop reacting and begin refining. People are like actors reading from your inner script. Change the script and the performance changes. The moment you embody a new identity, others must respond to it. Not because they have changed, but because your vibration has. The world, obedient to consciousness, always mirrors its author. To live from the end is to rest in the feeling of fulfillment now. No waiting, no questioning, only certainty. Neville taught that creation mirrors conviction, not desire. When you assume the wish fulfilled and move calmly as its embodiment, life rearranges itself. Fulfillment becomes memory, and the end becomes now. Assumption is the silent architect of existence. What you accept inwardly becomes the pattern life must obey. As Dr. Bruce Lipton revealed, perception shapes biology. Your inner conviction instructs every cell and circumstance. There are no failures, only reflections of past beliefs awaiting renewal. When thought, feeling, and presence align, creation responds effortlessly. You are both author and actor, writing reality through inner certainty. To assume is to embody, to let imagination become form. The moment you live as though it is done, life answers, echoing your silent truth. What you are within, the world becomes without. If these words awaken something in you, subscribe to this channel and let these teachings continue to remind you of who you truly are.